All right, hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to be able to present my topic on the neuroscience of music, really how music is a tool for influencing brain health and functioning. So let's get into it. So, neuroscience and music, what is really the connection? So, let's define music. We can define music as really organized sound with a rule based framework. Think about music composition, music creation, but at the same time, we consider it as an abstract art form because its interpretation in music really varies among different individuals. We know music is part of our daily lives. I personally am a very avid Spotify user. However, we really want to look into the research that says that music can be used in the areas of medicine, therapy, education, and cognition to really advance human development. And this is really why it impacts me. As a musician of 10 years myself and now a senior at Doherty Valley High School, I really want to understand and have this capstone project for something that's affected my life so profoundly. All right, so the first thing we know how to do first is understand how music really gets to us, understanding the process of audition. So audition is really how we hear music and it's governed by the auditory system. Here's a little model that I drew of the ear. In the ear, we're going to divide it into the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. So the outer ear consists of the actual ear structure and really how sound waves or the musical vibrations are going to be able to pass through. Once there, we get to the middle ear where the sound waves are going to hit the eardrum, and those vibrations are going to then travel to the bones of the middle ear, which includes the anvil, the stirrup, and the hammer. After that, those vibrations are going to travel to this little funny looking structure called the cochlea. It's very bony and fluid filled and has a lot of little hair cells on it, and those hair cells are going to get activated and stand up when they have those vibrations hitting them. And from there, the cochlea is then going to activate that auditory nerve, which is going to connect to various areas of the brain. So, that leads us to musical processing. So once in the brain, there's various areas that music is going to be impacting, which includes Heschel's gyrus, the insular cortex over here, and the superior temporal lobe, and also other areas and other parts of the brain as well. And really, the processing of music depends on the level of participation. Musical perception really is how we listen to music and interact with it. Musical imagery kind of talks about how we imagine things and create scenarios in our head when we listen to music. And music production is really creating music by yourself. I'm going to focus more on musical perception here, and musical perception really depends on a bottom up and top down processing when music is, really given to us through the ears and how we process it in our brains. And that really depends, we process different aspects of music individually. So when we look at pitch, or really how high or how low we hear sounds, that's going to be in the superior temporal lobe. Same with timbre. Timbre and pitch are very similar, and they're both processed in the superior temporal lobe. We have a rhythm, which is actually going to be processed in the parabelt and the belt areas, which is more in the auditory cortex. We have the emotion, which is actually processed in the limbic system, which includes the amygdala and the hippocampus as well. And then we have anticipation, really how we predict the next part of music we're going to listen to, and that's going to be in the dorsal striatum and the hippocampus as well. Now, music perception I want to focus on because that really relates to music and medical applications. Musical interventions are being a lot more used in healthcare, and the main musical interventions include music therapy and music medicine. And the difference between them lies in, again, participation of music. Music therapy is very active. The client is participating in music with improvising, listening, and composing. It requires a licensed music therapist, and it activates a lot of brain networks and communication and motor control. Music medicine is actually more receptive. You're mostly listening to music passively, and it's creating a mode of relaxation by changing the heart rate and breathing and reducing really stress overall. And it can be done by any kind of medical professional. You don't really need a music therapist unless you want to consult them. Now let's get into actual case studies of diseases that I kind of looked at that are affected by music positively. The first one is Alzheimer's disease. We all know that it is a progressive neurodegenerative disease. And there's three main ways that music impacts Alzheimer's patients. First is through neurogenesis. It's able to promote a lot of neuronal connections in brain cells that have previously stopped working. In addition, it's able to stimulate dopamine, which brings a lot of feelings of well-being and pleasure. That's also Alzheimer's patients have depleted usage of, and also activates the supplementary motor area, which encodes music into memory. Finally, it also activates the autonomic system, which reduces the immune response in the brain, which is, harmful for Alzheimer's patients. Let's look into autism now. Autism is more of a neurodevelopmental condition and that affects interaction socially and starts at a very young age. Music therapy has more of an effect and it's very open-minded in that it actually works with the abilities of autistic individuals rather than trying to change them completely. It works with them and then tries to foster new behaviors. For example, music creation can foster eye contact and joint attention, and music listening can stimulate verbal reflection and verbal capabilities, which are very helpful for them to thrive in a social environment. Now, here are some other conditions that music is trying to be really researched into for their effects. For depression, we know that music therapy is more influential than music medicine. And for epilepsy, which is we have a lot of seizures because there's too much dopamine activity, too much neuronal activity, music has actually been able to modulate the hyperactivity of this circuitry that you see right over here and be able to help individuals. Oops. And for neonatal care, that's used for a lot of pregnant mothers and their premature babies. Music has been able to modulate responses in breathing and heart rate and be able to reduce the anxiety of mothers that deliver their babies earlier. And let's get into this part that really resonates with me the most, musical training. So musical training can be instrumentalists and vocalists as well. And there's a lot of great benefits for musicians, including like sensory adaptation and greater cognitive functions. But really want to focus on music's impact on neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is really how our brain is able to actually change its structure based on the experiences we deal with outside. This can include having myelination, synaptic remodeling, neurogenesis, a lot of great stuff that happens because of interacting with music. So first, let's look at neuroplasticity in the four main lobes of the brain. I'm going to quickly go over these four main lobes. So we have the frontal lobe, which is used for decision making and cognition. There's a lot of more gray area matter here, and then we have the temporal lobe, which is used for the auditory and language processing. Musicians really have to be able to listen to music and be able to respond to it very quickly. That's why there's a lot of gray matter there. A lot of gray matter in the parietal lobe of the brain, which is for sensory adaptation and spatial attention. Personally, as a pianist, being able to connect my brain to my hands while playing the piano is essential, and I'm able to do it because of this. And finally, the occipital lobe, which is really for the visual processing of stimuli. And there's a lot of increased gray matter here. This is why musicians are able to read musical scores. Some other areas that are affected by music include the limbic system, emotional processing. Musicians tend to be quite emotional when they're playing certain kinds of pieces. Same with the basal ganglia, the reward system. Personally, my reward system is that the more I practice, the better I will get at performing, and that really keeps me going. And finally, the cerebellum, which is for balance and movement. Think of marching band individuals who have to move and play music at the same time, so they have a lot of great processing done in the cerebellum. Finally, an area I want to kind of touch upon is music and work. There's a huge debate whether listening to music is going to help or hinder in the workspace, and I wanted to touch upon that to see what research has said. So here are some four kinds of cognitive tasks that I was researching and music, background music's effect actually. So when we look at attention, many studies have shown that background music is very positive in affecting concentration and attention for participants, but it really depends on the preference for music and how much the music actually affects an individual's arousal. For memory, background music showed to affect vocabulary learning and second language learning as well. Very helpful. For reading, reading was one of the only tasks that music actually hindered because it's very difficult for our brains to process reading like something and also kind of reading music technically when we listen to it, like reading the lyrics. So it tends to lower people's reading comprehension scores. It also depends on the personality type. If you're an extrovert who listens to a lot of pop music or an introvert who listens to more classical music or quieter music. And then critical reasoning and critical thinking and reasoning, actually, there were a lot of inconsistent results because of lots of confounding variables, which included the type of music, individual difference, and really the type of task, how each individual is suited for each kind of task. However, the general consensus is that different kinds of jobs, for example, comparing computer programmers to garment workers, depending on the job you're doing, it really depends upon how music is going to affect that. So overall, this is my main idea. We can utilize music more than just listening to it. We can integrate it in the fields of healthcare and fields of therapy to really have a lot of great change going into them. I was talking about autism, right? I think it's really wonderful that for autism, working with individuals rather than again forcing them to change their behaviors can allow the therapy and allow them to grow in many better ways possible. So that's just one impact. Even looking at musical training, really programs for musical training in schools are then very essential so that they can promote a lot of great behaviors in individuals as well. But that's just a couple ways. There's so many ways. It's infinitely like so many possibilities we can use to utilize music. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Sanvi. Very, very interesting to see how your passion, you've turned that passion into a project idea. Do you have any idea on whether like different genres of music can affect the brain in different ways and brain health?
So I did do a lot of research on that, but that was one area that they're still trying to figure out. But I think it depends on an individual and a genre as well. Like I was talking about personality, extroverts tend to listen to a lot of pop music because that kind of works kind of in their brain based on like how that's kind of shaped. They're able to like work better with something that kind of correlates to them. But I think there's a lot more, there's like a huge gap kind of whether the genre of music impacts. Because in the past, people have said, yes, classical music, yes, Mozart is very important. But these days, those kinds of theories are being a bit like refuted.
Gotcha. Is there anything that it sounds like you've learned that music can be helpful in certain ways and not super helpful, like, when you read, is there anything that you found that was shocking to yourself? Like you're a pianist, like, is there anything that you discovered that was unexpected?
Yeah, so I listen, I like, honestly, I fight with my parents a lot, whether if I should listen to music when I'm doing homework or not. But I'm trying to understand, when I listen to music of different languages, actually, that's not going to hinder my ability to understand English. That's more better than when I listen to English music. So for reading, for me personally, I can still read if I'm listening to music in a different language or just even instrumental music rather than English. So I think that's surprising. That's very different than the results that I found.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. I can listen to music without words when I work and read versus music with English words I can understand. Very cool. And I assume you did this research because you are interested in music. Like, are you interested in pursuing this further? Yeah, what's your future plans?
Well, yeah, I'm actually really interested in music therapy as, like as a degree program, but I really am interested more into neuroscience. And like since I'm coordinating with medicine, I really hope to kind of go into that field and perhaps, promote more research of this thing further. It's a really interesting connection that I really think we can hone into more.
Well, very cool. I definitely find it very interesting. So thank you, Sanvi, for
Mhm.
your presentation.